What's happening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Thursday Night Theory. Hope everyone's had a great Christmas and New Year's and ready to continue on with our breakdown of the Nashville number system and the chords and scales that are used therein. So tonight we're going to just do a short lesson on the diminished chord, and consequently that means the diminished scale as well, because every note in the diminished scale is a minor third from the last note. So if we ran that linear, let's just start on the open E string. So that's our E. A minor third above that is here. A minor third above that is here. A minor third above that is here. And a minor third above that is here. Alright, so you can already hear the sound of the scale. That diminished unsettled sound. So it sounds unfinished if you just run the scale. So if we run that scale in a position form, let's start on this E. We're going to go here, minor third. Okay, now to get a minor third here, we're going to go there, there, and so we're basically just walking up like a staircase. And now, we can't do that on the second string. That doesn't fit, so we got to come up an extra fret. See, that brings us back to that E right there. So that's the position form, and we already looked at the linear form. So now, how does that make a chord? Well, the quickest, simplest way I can teach you the diminished chord is, let's make a D7. Okay. Okay, but now let's make that D7 using these fingers. Using my second finger here, third finger here, fourth finger here. Now I'm going to use my first finger here. Alright, there's that diminished sound, that unsettled. When I was younger, I used to call it the demented scale or the demented chord because it has that unsettled. Okay, so where do you go from there? What is this used for? Well, the most basic thing, of course, it creates tension. It acts almost like a dominant 7 chord. Because, well, look, we just built that D7 that resolves into your 1 chord from this note. That's a leading tone. So we could just as easily use that diminished chord that we just learned. That resolves nicely. So typically, and I say typically, meaning, okay, you don't have to do, there's nothing that you have to do in music. It's a form of art, so you'll hear me say that a lot. But there are things that it's typically used for. See how that so nicely resolved up a half step? Right? You'll hear that a lot. That's a good use for that that scale or chord. Or it can go a whole step down. So if we had it here, a note here, it could also resolve into that G. So well, I went to a G minor that time, but let's listen. So that resolves very nicely too. Half step up or whole step down. Now, I don't hear this used a lot with major keys. My experience with the diminished scale or chord is typically with minor keys, and the most classic representation of that is Bach in his Toccata and Fugue in D minor. And there is a link to click to that lesson if you're interested. So he plays in D minor, and it's got the let's see, and he's in the minor scale right there, the D minor, and it's the harmonic minor, and that's something we haven't covered yet, but I'm just going to give you a little spoiler. The 7th degree of the minor scale is going to be sharp. That way it resolves into that octave from a half step lower. Hear how it's got that classical or Baroque sound. Right there from a half step below the root. Okay, so that sets us up perfectly for the diminished. Right? Okay, so that's a great example of where that's used. You can also work that chord up. So we said the scale degrees are a minor third from each other. So if we had this chord, couldn't we just bring that up 1, 2, 3 frets? Resolves very nicely into that E minor. That's one way to use it. Let's look at how it can also lead not to the root note, but maybe to the dominant chord. So I had that D7. One note changes that D7 dominant to a diminished chord. See how nicely that resolves? Consequently, the same diminished chord will go into a B7 with just changing one note, bringing this note to here. So, and a B7 is the dominant to E. So that brings us to an E minor. We could do that with an E major. I just like the minor. Okay, so if you can do that, couldn't that work as a pivotal point to modulate? Let's say you're in E minor. An example might be, I'm going to do just a little chord progression in E minor, and then I'm going to use that diminished chord as a pivotal point to go not only from B7 as the dominant chord to E minor, but also use it the next time around as a D7 to use as a dominant chord to resolve to G. Okay, so here's my progression. I'm going to be in a minor key, going minor 1 to minor 4, diminished, diminished, then the dominant. The dominant 5th, back to 1. And then I'm going to come back around and go from the diminished to the dominant 5 chord of the new key, which is going to be G minor. Okay, so check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about. This time I'm going to do that same progression, but I'm going to resolve to G minor. So we could just modulate all the way up all those keys until we finally get back to E again by using that method. So those are a couple ways to use your diminished scale or chord. Sometimes I like to use the scale instead of the chord if I'm doing something more riffy. Like, check this out. Let's see, I'm going to be an E right here. Let's see. There's just 2 notes of a diminished. Okay, so you can just fool around with it as you see fit, but it resolves a half step up or a whole step down, or you can morph it into a dominant 5 chord of whatever key you're in. So that's the diminished scale. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, ask me questions, give me some suggestions. I want to know what to teach you. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.